Okay, we're out here in St. Cloud, being on the road, and it's just occurring to me that, how arrogant the Hillsborough County Commission is. How they really don't sweat me at all. They don't sweat me. And what I've been doing is essentially coming to the county commission meetings and saying, look, your supervisor of elections office is dirty. I mean, that's what I've been saying over and over again. In not so many words, and sometimes precisely that. They're stealing elections in Hillsborough County. And you people are sitting there and doing nothing about it. I mean, I've been saying that over and over again. And they just go on with what they're doing. It's an elitist body of bureaucrats and legislators, former legislators. And, you can say something like that, and then a minute later they bang the gavel. They're on the consent agenda. They vote on that toot sweet, wham. And then Merman comes on and essentially starts talking about some art show, down in wherever. Some art festival. I mean, it's just bureaucratic thuggery and arrogance, To have to drive over here to get them to do their job on my own dime. I mean, it's the ultimate disgrace. Public officials behaving this way. I mean, I'm saying your county is rigging the vote. And you people have done nothing about it, And they just sit there and go on with their day. Each one of them is paid, God knows how. In my county, they're paid $60,000 a year. 2 hours work every 2 weeks. 60 grand. Something crazy like that. Well, the county commissioner does more than that. Well, I suppose the county commissioner takes the agenda packet and goes over it, goes and talks to constituents or whatever. But 60 grand? No. Have teachers making $35,000 a year for 12, 13 hours work every single day. And to have to spend my own money to drive over here, I mean, and get them to do their job. Now, what they could do, while I'm thinking about it here, is they could adopt a resolution to demand that the Division of Elections look into their own elections. What you're going to hear them say this morning is, well, we don't run elections. We don't run them. Ooh. That's what they're going to say. We ain't got nothing to do with that. Okay? Well, not our job. It's this Beauregard, Thibodeau, old school attitude. This bureaucratic thuggery, like I said. So they could adopt, any time, they could adopt a resolution to demand that division elections come in and look at their election. The one that happened November 2nd, 2010. But they won't do it. And why won't they do it? Well, sir, one of the reasons they won't do it is because I think between four of them were elected the night Rick Scott was elected. 4 of them were elected that night. And so it comes right down to, what's in it for me if I do that? Nothing in it for me, but I find out the election was screwed up. You know, I mean, complete and total self-interest. Civic duty, you know, trying to determine whether or not our election systems are secure. I mean, here's the deal. They have one or two things happening there. They have machines which are so screwed up that they shouldn't be in use. Or somebody's rigging the elections, because it went like this. Leonard sent the material off and said, look, he sent the from the elections report, which, you know, that was the conduct of elections report was what I was looking for when I first went over there. But, well, you didn't say the magic words. Y'all should. You didn't use the flippity-flam on the flippity-flam word. You know, I asked the man direct, I said, look, is there any piece of documentation that I need to understand what happened? And he said, well, there's a report, but it isn't done. It isn't finished. Which was a lie. It was done. It was complete. I went to him in July. You know, they had a report dated March 3rd. So there was a report. You know? So that was a lie. My dad used to call it goddamn lie. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's what it was. It was a goddamn lie. And he told me like 4 of them that day, and that was one of them. So I walked out of there after driving across the state and talked to him. I walked out of there without any kind of documentation. So the report essentially says he sent a report off. He sent the November 14th off to them and said, look, it said, we don't know what's wrong with your machines. You know, 12 memory cards failed to upload their data to the server so we could count the votes. And then we had to have us rescan it. We drive all the votes around in the middle of the night, we rush job and cram them all back through the machine. Oh, Thibodeau and Boudreaux. Yeah, Thibodeau and Boudreaux is an old Louisiana thing. I'm not from there, but I've friends are from there. Anyway, kind of bayou bureaucracy going on there. You know, drive the votes around. See, that's the thing. You know, that's disenfranchising people is what's going on there. You know, minority votes. Well, we got to do something special with them. I mean, this is so old school, cracker redneck BS. Well, minorities and young students and poor peoples, we're going to have to do something a little bit different with their votes. That's what that is. Drive them around the middle of the night, shuffle and jive, cram them back through the machines. You know, ballots, 14 to 17 inches long. I believe the ballot used that night was 17 inches long. So that means 38,000 ballots, and this is the story now, were jammed back through the machines. 38,000 ballots, 17 inches of ballots. That's every bit of 7 miles long. You stretch them end to end. We're led to believe that took place over a period of 3 hours. 15 people furiously cramming those ballots back to the machine. No, sir. No. That did not happen. That did not happen. The time doesn't even. You imagine 2 seconds of ballot. They can't make that. No. Can't make that in 3 hours. No. Didn't happen that way. So we had the flippity-flam. Earl Leonard sent off and said the machine doesn't work. The machine company sent back March 3rd and said, what your people are doing is essentially a hot extraction. So what they're doing is they're taking they have to burn the memory cards with the vote counting software. That means they have to put the vote counting software on the memory cards, which are then sent out to the early voting precincts, in this case. All early voting, yeah. So the memory cards themselves didn't receive the proper complement of software, okay, in 12 cases. And then those memory cards, as though on the backs of guided missiles, were sent out to early voting places. And in the last 3 days of early voting, this prevented the upload of the votes in 50% of those early votes. Okay, 50%, which then resulted in the curious drive around the middle of the night with the votes in bags, run on back to the Falkenberg Road Annex. I'm going to start calling that place the Fakenberg Road. And then cram the ballots back through the machines. No, sir. No, sir. That's not how it happened. Okay? So you have the voting machine company blaming the supervisor of elections office, and you have the supervisor of elections office, the last word he has on it is that something wrong with the machine. And in a year and 3 months, there hasn't been the slightest bit of an investigation into which of these two is correct. Okay? Which of these two is correct? You know? And the intellectual curiosity of the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners with regard to this, you couldn't measure that with the most delicate instruments known to science. They have zero intellectual interest, intellectual curiosity with regard to this. Now, you either have voting machines that you spent millions on, okay, that don't work, or you have people rigging elections inside the Hillsborough Supervisor of Elections office. The supervisor himself hasn't determined which. He hasn't gone any further in his quest than to receive feedback from the machine company says, y'all shouldn't pull the cards out of the machine before all the software can download. Okay. Now, how did that happen? The neat part about that, which is essentially your kid pulling out the CD from the CD burner before his favorite song is put on it. Tell me that'll happen. You know? A 12-year-old knows better. But in this case, the error happened 12 times in a row. Okay, so somewhere between time 2 and time 12, we ain't having us an error anymore, Thibodeau. You mean that, Boudreaux? Laissez le bon temps rouler. Yeah. You know, sometime along between 2 and 12, it's not an error. That's intent, okay? So, in a year and 3 months since this election of Rick Scott, in which 4 of these county commissioners were elected, the supervisor himself hasn't looked into it at all. No. He's got 2 answers. He doesn't know which one's right, and he's not going any further in his investigation. Why? Okay? The Hillsborough County Commission, so too. They know this. You know how I know that? Because they refused to sign off as members of the canvassing board. Not one of those county commissioners. Now, there were 4 up for election that I know of, but there were other 2 that weren't up for election. One of them could have signed off as a member of the canvassing board. Canvassing board has to have a judge, the supervisor of elections, okay, and a member of the county commission, okay? So one of them could have signed off, but no. That county commission wants nothing to do with that election, how it was handled. They don't want to put their signature on it. That's how I know that they know that something screwed up that vote. So it comes down to this. It comes down to how far do they ignore this before what they're doing becomes willful blindness, becomes complicity, becomes part of the very cover-up. Okay? They could adopt a resolution to demand the Division of Elections look into their election. They could do that, and that's what I'm going to ask for today. And I know that they're not going to do it, but I'm going to shame them. I'm going to make them say, look, you either do this today, or you can explain to the voters of the United States of America, explain to the voters of the state of Florida, and explain to the voters of Hillsborough County why you have no interest in seeing to the sanctity of the vote. You have zero interest in making sure that the vote is secure in the anchor county of the I-4 corridor as we face 2012. Tell us why you're not concerned.